Welcome to The Grant, the EU funding podcast. The Grant. My name is Niels Winter, and I'm the creator, editor, and host of The Grant. The Grant is an independent podcast initiative with the ambition to dig into all corners of the EU R&D funding system on topics of interest for the full EU R&D funding community. This episode is part of the implementation series with focus on guidance on implementing EU-funded projects. Most of us have been at minimum one, and some of us have been planning and conducting some or several of them. I'm talking about consortium meetings, and they are a core element in implementing an EU project. To get a solid grip around the topic, I have invited in Nicole Schmidt, Senior Project Manager in the independent EU grant consultancy company EUTEMA, to share her experience and how she and her colleagues attack this crucial task as coordinator. This episode both sets the frame of what consortium meetings they are, and we share reflections on how to avoid pitfalls of long and boring PowerPoint sessions and how to secure a good connection in between the consortium partners. Please enjoy. The Grant. Welcome to The Grant, the EU funding podcast. Today, we are continuing I am continuing the implementation series that I'm slowly recording and releasing episodes on, and the series, it zooms in on every single aspect of implementing an EU project. So I have, of course, a dedicated site for the series on my platform, thegrant.eu, where you can go and check out the episodes that have already been recorded, you can listen to. Now, today we're going to talk about consortium meetings, and Nicole, welcome.
Hi, welcome. Good to be back.
Now, hardcore regulars welcome indeed. And hardcore regulars will remember that you have been joining me before.
We talked about the kickoff meeting, right? Yeah.
Exactly, the kickoff meeting, because I was thinking, what was it actually? Yeah. So that was the kickoff meeting, yeah. Now, and in connection with that, I invited you into because also your manager Georg is a friend of the house here of the Grant. And you do a lot of good things with your implementation when you're involved in the project you win. So you have been involved in a couple of episodes, both Georg and yourself, here in the implementation series. Now, before anything else, a short introduction to the listeners.
Sure. So hi, everyone. My name is Nicole. I do support Horizon Europe projects as a project manager and communication manager. And I also usually do lots of meetings and workshop facilitation within that scope. As you mentioned, I work for Georg Melzer-Venturi, another regular on this podcast, at EUTEMA Research Services, a small science support office in Vienna, as a senior project manager since about 3 years. And before that, I was at the other end of the funding landscape at the Austrian Research Promotion Agency, where I worked as a national contact point for the COST program, but also as a project manager in the projects we were involved in as FFG, which were mainly coordination and support actions, but also there highly involved in project management, but also facilitation of meetings and the various trainings and workshops we did. So there is quite some expertise here when it comes to meeting organization and facilitation, and that's why I'm here with you today.
Indeed it is. So let's just because these textbook episodes here, it's they have a certain flow and they tend to carry on because there's normally a lot of things to say when you have to scope out for people how to attack things. So the format here, dear listener, is that in the series I take the different elements of the implementation of a project and then sort of fold out what you need to do but also with different input from my guests, of course, on how you can do it with different angles, or give you some inspiration on how to attack the different challenges. So here we're going to look at the consortium meeting. Everybody who's doing projects will have to have consortium meetings. So it's especially for the coordinator, of course, and the team, people from the team that are involved in setting up, planning the meetings and conducting them. Yeah. So we will try to take it step by step. Now, short fly-in. What is there to say
about consortium meetings?
Unavoidable. You have to do that.
Yeah, unavoidable, but beautiful. Consortium meetings are really one of the most the parts that I really like most about projects, because you meet the people, you really meet them face to face again. And so yeah, they need to be done. They're usually done in the projects that we are involved in every 6 months, while we do have virtual meetings every 6 months. So first we start with the kickoff, then we have 6 months later the next meeting, which we usually now tend to sometimes do as another on-site meeting, because usually we would alternate with virtual and on-site. But especially at the beginning, when we look at the chronology of meetings, we now have changed to sometimes have a second on-site meeting after the kickoff, after 6 months, to really get the wagon going before we go back to a virtual meeting. But usually we alternate every 6 months, so virtual meeting, on-site meeting, virtual on-site. So we see each other twice a year for a full consortium meeting, once on-site and once online.
Yeah, what you can say in a fly-in is that I guess that the meetings, they are the glue that you need both formally to bind the group together, but also informally, right? So they are you need to meet, because people are scattered all over Europe, especially if it's large collaboration projects. So it's sort of follow up and status. Yeah. So it's sort of where are we in the different places, and where do we need to push, and then information from the coordinator also, typically, right?
Yeah, I would say it really depends on whether it's a virtual or an on-site meeting. Up front, I would like to say that during the pandemic, of course, I thought virtual meetings are how we're going to do it in the future, because that's how we can save costs and we can save the environment, and we just stick with virtual meetings from now, because you can do so many things online now. But having gone back ever since to on-site meetings, I gotta admit that I have to change my mindset about that, because it makes such a difference really to meet on-site. And then, so we do distinguish a little bit when it comes to the main aim, the goal, and how we approach these meetings, based on whether it's a virtual meeting or an on-site meeting. So for a virtual meeting, we would focus on project progress, updating everyone. So it's super easy for everyone to join. Sometimes we have consortia who are more than 60 people, where there are people involved who are usually only working in one work package, and they never see the full picture. So we really put the focus on giving an update and giving this full big project picture to everyone. While during an on-site meeting, personally, I think it would be a pity to only have like one work package presentation after the other. It's way more about reconnecting, discussing, diving deep into group sessions, interactive workshops, everything you can do. You can also do online, but you can do way better on-site. And so I think to me, there is a difference between how to approach virtual and on-site meetings. Yeah.
All right, thanks. So it's yes, indeed, virtual versus on-site.
Hello, my name is Chiara Liguori. I've been listening to the podcast for half a year, but I invite you all to listen to it as well.
Now, let's go into the first section that we have here after the flying on what a consortium meeting it looks like. And now you already sketched a little bit, talking a little bit about virtual and in person, but let's just take it from the top. What such a thing would look like in duration and format and so on.
Yeah. So usually, as also already mentioned, we would have it like every 6 months. We would plan it in between 1 or 2 full days. So when we are not talking about on-site meetings, right? We have small consortia where really 1 day is sufficient, but usually we would have at least 1.5 days, if not 2. Well, with the 2 days, the issue is that, of course, people like to fly back home on the second day. And if it takes the whole day, then sometimes it just doesn't work out properly. So usually we end up with 1.5 days, which is not a lot of time if you have bigger, complex consortia. What we also like to do is given the short amount of time we have anyway during these 2 days, people would travel the day before, right? And so we would also have a networking session on the evening of the arrival day, which in the worst case scenario, you could also already include a little bit of work in there, right? And otherwise, it's just such a nice starting point to get everybody together, to check back in, and to already, it's easier for people when they already meet in a social setting the evening before to then dive into the discussions and the meeting itself the day after.
But that's always an issue of logistical considerations, okay?
Yes.
You probably know that very well yourself. It all depends on where do you have the meeting. Is it easy to access or is it difficult to access?
Yeah.
So if you have one in Brussels or in Vienna or in Berlin or something like this, and not too far, in the city center, something that's then it's easier for people to say, okay, then we take a late afternoon plane, and we can be there for the dinner. But if it's somewhere in the middle of nowhere, or where it takes for people have layover flights to get there, or stuff like this, then you need to look a little bit into, you need to put this into your consideration.
Absolutely. It's so true. And I would really recommend to compromise. I myself, I'm always getting excited about, like, we have this coordinator in Sweden, and we were discussing a meeting in the north of Sweden for our next meeting. But it's so difficult to get there. As you say, people would have to leave earlier to get back. No one really wants a stopover if it's avoidable. And then ultimately, it sounds better than it in practice than really is. That's the one thing with the location. And then also with regards to picking the right partner institution. So independent of where they are, it's also so crucial that they have a great, really good technical infrastructure. Most, I would say, or a majority of the partners maybe already have that, but we usually have hybrid meetings, right? So nowadays you cannot offer a meeting anymore where the virtual participants don't fully hear the discussions, but then you already need a really good technical setup with microphones, with hand mics. So that also, and it's really in the details, like the practical stuff, like when you're using an AI note taker, for example, to take minutes, and you don't have hand mics, and it all goes via one microphone, which is hard to understand anyway, the discussions in the plenary, but also the note taker only recognizes one input, right? So everything is basically said by one person, and that makes it so much harder for you in the follow-up to prepare the minutes based on that. So these are these little things that you think, like when you dream of the northern Sweden snow scenario, that you don't consider in the first moment, but that could actually really screw up your meeting.
Make your life hell.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, but it's of course, you can do these kind of things, but then you have to be sensible about the logistics. You need to take a step back and see, okay, what does it implicate? What are the implications if we want to do it in northern Finland, or
Yeah, absolutely. And I think this is really apart from our experience that should already be taken into account during the proposal phase, not necessarily each and every location, but also with regards to budget planning, because what we usually see in our proposal budgets is that we say, okay, every partner has a travel budget between like 1,200, 1,500 or so per institution per meeting. And then the ones who ultimately step up as local hosts, they would save this kind of money for traveling, and then they would can use this money for the hosting. But nowadays, with the requirements for the technical setup, some for the catering, when you have a larger consortium. I mean, I mentioned this consortium with 60 people before. This is just not enough, right? And so the local hosts, they always pay extra from their own pocket, and it's really something that you have to consider right from the start, how to best implement these meetings. Maybe one more addition there, in specific cases where we're involved in a lot of projects from the health cluster, where we have patient research partners, specifically, for example, in a rheumatology project, SQUEEZE, that is led by the Medical University Vienna. We have a lot of patient partners, and there are extra considerations that you need to take into account. And so we usually do our meetings in hotels, because it's way more convenient for the patients to be able to directly go from or go back to their room in between. And this, of course, again, comes with extra costs, right? And which we had not considered in the proposal. That would be an experience or a tip that I can share, that really consider that from the very early steps on how you implement your consortium meetings.
Yeah. So if we zoom again a little bit out and see what these meetings look like. So duration, 1 to 2 days. And then depending on the length, how you structure yourself, the ones I've been at, has been 2, 1.5. You arrive one day, then there's activity. You mentioned to arrive one day, and then there's social activity, and then you have an event, the activities the day after. So it's I've never been at a 3-day.
No, me neither.
No. It's 1.5 to 2 days each. Yeah. Format, we just online or in person, but also format. I was thinking, but maybe we dig into that in the key elements. But anyways, the format would be that there's information, and then there's interaction, right?
Exactly.
So you have information from the coordinator, and then you have exchange, or you have workshops or whatever, where you take the chance when you're together on the content.
Yeah. So when we're sticking with on-site meetings, we're very recently, we're going down in the time that we spend on project updates, like classic presentation from the various work package progress, each meeting. So nowadays we are like 15 minutes, but I've already heard from a partner project that they're down to 7 minutes, which is really challenging. But yes, we try to keep let's say in general, the presentation, the frontal presentation input, very short and to the point, and then really dive into interactive discussions, group works, focusing on the implementation challenges in the various work packages, give feedback via interactive, as you said, kind of workshops or so, and also really allow enough time for breaks, because from our experience, the best discussions sometimes happen over coffee when you're in line at the coffee machine and you need the time to elaborate a bit further than two. So we usually try to have half an hour coffee breaks. Not at least, but not just 15 minutes. So yeah.
Maybe we make an extra block or extra section here where we talk a little bit about the planning of the consortium. I know I didn't forward it, but we can probably together sort of
work it out,
pull out what you need to do. So when do you start to plan for a consortium meeting?
Yeah. Well, in a perfect world and in my dream case scenario, I start basically right after the last meeting, because after the last meeting is where I feel the momentum, where I'm still hyped about seeing everybody, and where I love planning when I see them the next time. But of course, in practice, I do usually, I work with this, I think I mentioned that for the kickoff meeting too, I work with this online tool Session Lab, but you can also basically work with an Excel file where I then just copy paste and rename, and then I already have my first draft, and that helps me personally quite a lot then when I get back into it a few weeks or months later to have an easier start. And definitely what I in a perfect world would also do is really to do a debrief with the core group that helped organize the meeting, and immediately discuss, okay, what went well, what should we change for the next time, maybe also get some feedback from the consortium partners. Because a few weeks, months later, when you then really start planning, you have forgotten half of that already, right? So that at least I would try to transfer, I do that knowledge transfer from the last meeting to the next.
Probably you found yourself a couple of times with a little bit of consortium meeting fatigue. So when the meeting is over, you just, and then some of these things go a little bit sideways, and then or what?
Lucky enough, I find myself, maybe this is about the consortia we are involved in, but I really enjoy meeting them, but I think it's also really
no, that's not what I meant.
Okay.
I meant that you are exhausted after a consortium meeting from the point of view of so you want to in your workflow you want to put your head at something else, because there's also stuff that has been waiting because you've been heavily overloaded with logistics and conducting a meeting. So some of these things about debrief and making sure you get everything collected and so on, that might sometimes slide a little bit.
Yeah, it takes. You're absolutely right. Now I fully understand what you're hitting at, and it's totally true. It helps to me, also, of course, it totally depends on what kind of personality you are. I mean, when you think about Georg, for example, my boss, he likes to, right after the meeting, sit in the airport lounge and discuss everything and debrief. I like to have a sip of Prosecco and watch a Netflix show and be out of it. Exactly. So that depends. But then I usually, after a moment of recalibrating myself, and then maybe when I take a long walk in the woods or so, then I sit down and jot down a few thoughts. I actually already do that during the meeting. I mean, being a trained facilitator, I always have my various colored cards with me, and then I just write down already a few thoughts and learnings during the meeting when it's really freshest, and then at some point when I have had enough time and distance to the meeting, I just take it up again and look at them and at my notes and take it from there. But I think if I may add a thought, and
Sure.
that might be a bit out of structure here, but because you mentioned the fatigue after such a meeting, and that's one of my key learnings, and that I would really like to share is it really takes a village to organize such a meeting. And what I mean is to really have a team in charge. And you would think that that's a no-brainer. And I'm not saying that we're not all together preparing and discussing and setting up the agenda together with the coordinator and the coordinating team. But then on site, there are so many different to-dos, starting from the technical issues, the technical setup, the moderation of the event. Somebody should do some social media postings. Maybe you want to shoot some work package leader videos. Someone has questions on the catering and the logistics on site. And if you don't have a team that is actually already briefed on these things, then no one can really help you at that time when you need it, right? And I think, I mean, I guess it very much depends again on the personalities involved, but I had to learn that I really need to delegate, and also delegate in time, and with the team together set clear responsibilities, who is in charge of what during the consortium meeting, because otherwise, as you said, as a moderator or as the person in charge, you could get really exhausted during these 1.5, 2 days.
And that's the thing, because the planning it takes a long build up for those 1.5 day, right?
Yeah.
So now I just on the top of my head here, when while you shared this, I put a small list. So you have to recap. Then so that's what you mentioned. And then there's a budget. So what's there's something with what can we do the next time? This is, and then logistics, and then content program, and social program, and then communication, as you just mentioned now also. At the same time as you're doing with coordinating the project as such, parallel to this. So you have some, especially the logistics is something that takes, better. Yeah, I've been doing this a couple of times. I've been conducting planning meetings and setting them up, and so it takes. You have to think everything through from what you just mentioned. From the smallest things you mentioned. If there's only one microphone, then we need more. Who's taking the minutes, or stuff like this.
Yeah.
Who's taking them out? It's not obvious where they have to go when we come to the restaurant. Someone needs to be there to stand and guide them in the right direction. Stuff like this.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. It's really the nitty-gritty little things that you sometimes don't even consider when planning, and that's why it's so important that you have a solid foundation. And in one of my trainings for meeting facilitation and moderation, our trainer always mentioned this iceberg picture of an iceberg, where you say that an iceberg is only that stable in the water because 80% of it is underwater holding it steady. So 80% in that scenario is the planning that you do for the meeting, and then only the 20% that you see is the shiny, bright and crystal iceberg, but it's only held steady in the water because it has this strong foundation and base. And that's why people make fun of me because I always have this little clipboard with my stage plan, and it's really detailed down to the minute. And of course, the idea is not that you're stuck to this and you can't, because it will be screwed up in the first few minutes when the vice rector is starting his speech and takes way longer than he should. But it gives you the foundation for flexibility. And I know exactly how long stuff should take and where I have a buffer, where I can cut off 10 minutes or whatsoever. And I think that's the solid planning actually then helps you also to be able to deal with the stuff, the unforeseen stuff and the changes and the flexibility you always need in these kind of meetings. And then you can also have the trust and the kind of what's the word? You can relax into it a little, because you say, like, okay, I know there is some time buffer at the end. I can let him talk for a while longer. That's fine. I think to me that really helps a lot. But I'm also, you might know by now, I'm also a bit of a control freak and a very structured person.
But the structure and but it's because that's what you need for these kind of things. And obviously, it's preparation. Yeah, because if you're well prepared, especially something like this, if you're an event planner, then the more you do of these kind of things that you just outlined, the better, because you know exactly the bits and pieces, and then you know exactly where you have flexibility. So yeah, it's
Right.
we're all different. Yeah, some people, they do these things, but they don't have this. They maybe a little bit more chaotic, but it's if you need a certain sense of a frame for arranging these kind of things. These are not big conferences. You might have conferences in connection with your with your project, but if now we're talking the partner meetings. So it's best, at least, and don't be alone.
Yeah,
For Christ,
yeah,
don't be alone.
absolutely. That's really the best playing field to learn to delegate and work with a team. And people actually want to help, but you also need to let them. And that is something that I'm really learning, because it's just so energy draining if you try to do that all yourself and you wear all these hats. And we haven't even started talking about people then approaching you with topics they want to discuss about other projects that you're together involved in, or you just want to have some personal conversations with the people you like from the project. So, and I had moments where I just couldn't go to a dinner because I was just so exhausted. And
that's not good.
That's really not good, because the dinners are the best parts, right? And so No. So, and it's actually, people are happy it's when they can help, and especially stuff that are things that are easy to give to somebody else, like, for example, social media postings, right? I mean, that somebody can take a picture and post on LinkedIn or Blue Sky or wherever we are at, and somebody can shoot some videos if you're doing that on site, whatever. So it's people have their tasks and they're happy with it, and then you have something off your list.
Yeah, and that's that of course is coinciding with the communication part. But this is do you use this element? Now I'm flip-flopping a little bit in where I am in the rundown, but now you said it. So do you use the group communication wise when you're there to ask them to take photos and upload while you are doing things during the partner meeting?
Too little, or I don't know if that was grammatically correct, but there is potential for doing that more. Let's say it like that.
Yeah.
that opens a whole other. I think that's a. If you didn't have that yet, I'm pretty sure you had that yet. This opens a whole other dimension for what is meaningful communication in an EU project.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, we do always, of course, to tick the box, encourage our partners to post while they are at the meeting, and some of them always do, and it's nice. It gives us traffic on our social media channels and whatsoever, and so I think it's not a bad thing to do. But ultimately, but that's a whole other story. I think it's really important to consider what is really meaningful outreach when it comes to communication in an EU project. But yeah, different story.
Yeah, no, it was just a thought. No. Anything else on the planning we need to? How many people are you when you are doing
This is really diverse. In between, so we don't have super small consortia, which I know from some sister projects of ours, but we usually are in between 20 to 60 plus people. So we usually are involved in slightly bigger-ish consortia. So.
And how many are you for the planning? Is that just you?
No, because as EUTEMA Research Services works, we usually do coordination support and do the communication. So we usually lead the deck work package. So we are usually involved in a coordination team with the scientific coordinators, and depending on their situation, they are one man or woman shows or have a certain number of people in a coordination team. So I would say we are in between 3 to 5 people preparing these kind of meetings. And then, of course, getting input from the local hosts, which add on to that number. And sometimes when we have, like in this One Health project, where we have patient research partners, we also have the patient organization dealing with these partners to also give input to these meetings. So sometimes these prep meetings are a larger amount of people. Maybe to add to the starting part, like the formal, what a consortium meeting looks like. We've been discussing now the duration and format and frequency and all, mainly focusing on on-site meetings. Maybe just let me add 1 or 2 thoughts on virtual meetings, because they also exist. And here it's slightly different with regards to the duration, because who wants to sit in a full day virtual meeting? So what we started doing is to try to split it on 2 days, like start one day in the afternoon and then continue the next day in the morning, which we made quite good experiences with, because people are usually more like fresher, especially on the second day in the morning, because you can really tell energy wise, also for myself, when you start in the afternoon, it's already, you have half a day of work already behind you. But still, it works better than having people like a full day in front of their screens, because you just lose them. So yeah, that's maybe just an addition with regards to the format and duration of virtual consortium meetings.
I am Vladiana. I listen to the grant and social duo. Also, I am the winner of the Grand Mag.
Yes. Now, maybe we move on to the agenda.
Sure.
And what this normally looks like. So, can you share how you do it? We have some bullets here, but can you take it from the top?
So I would stick to on-site, because I think that maybe puts a bit more flesh on the bones. On-site, we usually start with of course, quick welcome from the scientific coordinator, from the local host. most of the time, of course, also some kind of official welcome from the vice rector or managing director or whatsoever of the host institution. What we then always have is like a bit of an introductory part where I am personally a big fan of goals, to also put them on a slide. What are the goals of these meetings? What do we want to get out of? Not just the agenda, it's different. It's really like putting into words like what we really want to do. And what we want to get out. A little bit of like, housekeeping. Where do you find the toilets, and how does the Wi-Fi work? I mean, that's of course always the most important question at the very beginning. You're losing everybody if they don't know how the Wi-Fi works. And then we like to do also a quick round welcoming the respective project newbies, how we call them, because I think new people are sometimes forgotten to onboard in a way. I mean, of course, they are onboarded by their specific institutions and they get all the project management handbook in the best case scenario and all. But when they are at the meeting for the first time, I think it's nice to give them the chance to also quickly introduce themselves, say a few words, what their role in the project is and which work package they are involved in or whatsoever, to just make them feel part of the team.
Yeah.
And then it depends a bit, that usually you also have a general assembly part in the consortium meeting if there are any decisions necessary to make. And here it really depends. It's a little bit of a strategic decision where to put this into the agenda. Most of the times we would put it right after that part if we don't have anything crucial to discuss. It's just a checkbox or just something where we know, okay, hey, we need an amendment for this or that, and it's pretty clear and everybody agrees already. We've discussed that before in the steering committee meeting and we don't expect any big discussions. We would put it at that point in the agenda and then it's just done and behind us. Mm-hmm. If there are some crucial discussions to be expected or some difficult discussions to be expected, then I would maybe not start straight away with that. And I guess then just one other factor to factor in is, of course, you also don't want to do it at the end because you also don't want to spoil the end, and you would want to have all people there you need for to reach your quota. That's just something.
Need to end on a good note.
Yeah, exactly. You don't also.
No, really.
No, absolutely. So I wouldn't put it if I expect difficult discussions, then I wouldn't put it at the very end, and I also wouldn't put it at the very beginning. Somewhere in between, where best first day maybe before the end, so then you could still meet and hang out at the dinner and be friends again after the rough discussions, or share a beer,
that helps.
Yeah. And then we would usually try to alternate between theoretical input and breakouts or interactive group exercises or workshop style discussions. Not too much of one and not too much of the other. So really just try to alternate. So it's a good mix.
It is a challenge for these meetings that you do have some sessions with, like one direction, right? So one person and everybody look towards the blackboard.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And you want to, all coordinators, they're struggling with this for these meetings because it's just not very, all oxygen goes out of your brain after a couple of hours.
Yeah.
So it's but there's some things you have to go through, right? You need to make sure that everybody on top is what's going on. So you need to how's the status in the work packages, if there are problems, things that people need to know, and that you can only do like that. No.
Yeah, no, I agree that you need to relay the big project picture. You need to have everybody understand, okay, where we are at, what are the main challenges and whatsoever. I think you could question to what kind of detail from each and every work package everybody in the consortium needs to know about this. So what we did last time at our one of our health projects, I think worked really well. So we were about halftime of the project, and we had the feeling that there was lots of in-depth work going on, and everybody was very, very busy with their respective tasks, and there was a bit a lack of this full project picture vision, really, to where do we actually want to go with this. And so we decided to have as the first presentation this kind of vision presentation done by the coordinator, the scientific coordinator, and bringing everybody up to speed, like, okay, why are we doing this? Where do we want to go with this? And where approximately are we? So he gave a very generic and yet very inspiring overview of where we initially wanted to go with the project and where we are at, and then the in-depth discussions of the various work packages were done in parallel sessions, in breakout sessions, where the people were in the respective session where they were most involved in. Now, listening to myself saying this, it really very much depends on the project itself and how it is structured, right? I mean, in some projects, everybody is kind of involved everywhere, or there is a kind of like very classic progress. You start with the design, and then you go in the pilot scale, and then you go in lab scale, pilot scale, talking batteries now, and then into the giga scale, whatever. And then there are other projects which are kind of like more like a matrix, and people and work packages are not that much interconnected. Some of them are, but not all. And then you can do that, right? You don't need to have the people designing, working in a clinical trial, sitting together so much with the people doing a stakeholder analysis or whatsoever. And so then it works, right? That you do these parallel sessions and then just have a report out of these sessions afterwards. But yeah, I guess it really very much depends. But ultimately, what I want to say is really ask yourself, how much detail do the partners really need? Because, okay, maybe that's the point of it. To me, a consortium meeting is great, on site, especially to meet, to discuss in person stuff, the challenges, discussing the next steps and everything. The real work is done in between the consortium meetings, right? And you should have, in the best case scenario, regular work package meetings, regular steering committee meetings where stuff is discussed. So personally, I can say for my work packages, in the consortium meeting, it's great to reconnect with my partners to discuss really issues that we face or some challenges. But we don't need to relay in detail exactly to everyone on site what we're currently working on. As long as they have the big overview, what are the key issues, the key topics, the key progress, that level of information, I think, is enough. I think it's really the less is more when it comes to consortium meetings, and then you have more time for really
probably depend. So you would also have different phases of the project, where you would have maybe a phase of the project where everybody needs to understand what's going on.
Yes.
And you would have phases of the project where it's not vital that everybody listens to everything that's going on. What I have experienced is that you would have a fly-in on all what's going on in each work package. Then you would have breakout rooms where you would have in-person possibility because of the meeting to sit around a table and discuss specifically on that work package. So I guess this is all a matter of, so if we look at the key elements of a consortium meeting, right? You have plenary, and you should have some sort of breakout for air to the brain going. Not everybody needs to hear everything, and then you need to adjust this according to what makes sense. But don't bore people to death, for Christ's sake.
Yeah,
it's very easy.
Yeah.
It's very easy to bore people to death.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
Totally. But two things come to mind here. First thing, I totally agree to what you said about how the meetings, it depends really on which stage of the project you're currently in, how the consortium meetings do really have to align with the respective point in time of the project lifecycle. Therein, of course, at the start, people need to understand way more, and then later in the project lifetime, when you hope that they have already understood, you focus on other stuff, right? And
do you?
And the second thing, sorry, it's just to finish that thought. And the second thing, really, I mean, as you said, I don't know how exactly you put it, but we're really talking about best case scenarios here. In practice, from my experience, there is always too little time. There is always a compromise I need to make. We do these parallel sessions because they work up to a certain degree, but in a best case scenario, the discussions also benefit from a bit more of an outside view, right? So from people who are not necessarily deeply involved in this specific work package that currently has a breakout. And it would be good if they would contribute to that, but they are in parallel in another breakout session where they're more involved in, right? So in a way, we're always trying to balance this to give people time to join other parallel sessions, but then again, you would have to, each institution would basically have to come with 3 people so that they can split up, and that doesn't work with the costs that you have budgeted, exactly. Right? So there's always it's always a compromise.
Yeah. Do you let the work package leads do the planning of their breakouts?
Yes.
Yeah?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, because for 2 reasons. I think they are the experts. I mean, we, as you know, especially for EUTEMA, I mean, we support projects from various fields. Like we have a focus maybe on sustainable battery development and health cluster, but also other stuff. So we also don't really have the full picture, the full expertise for the in-depth discussions. So they are that's on them. And also, I think we were just discussing on what you already do as an organizer and a moderator of such an event. It would just be a tad too much. But what I do have to do, of course, is discuss with them the time that they need or that they want to have for these discussions, the time that I can give them, the technical setting they need, because sometimes that adds a whole other layer of complexity when they, of course, also want to include virtual participation in their breakout rooms. So then you have to have a setup there too. Yeah. And especially when it's interactive discussions that are going on in a breakout, then you also want to be somewhat involved in that. But that's also another big topic to open up, but still you really want to have good work package leaders, right? You want to have proactive.
That's another episode.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's back in my timeline series when you are building your consortium.
Yeah, but this is really just to drop a quick note here. It's so important. It's nothing better than working with great work package leaders. It's the best. Yeah, but you don't always get those.
Well, the quick reply to that is that the longer you've been in this game, the longer you know who are good to work with.
Yeah, absolutely. That's right. And then this can become really, I mean, I find it sometimes somewhat pathetic to talk about this, like, you know, as this project family or something. But it's for some projects it's really true. Maybe wouldn't say family, but really friends. It's just when you work well together, and when you set up this kind of this kind of ownership that people really feel of having for a project, and that starts to get built already in the proposal phase. But then when you can tell when people are really committed and passionate, and then it's just a different kind of working together. And we are, I must say, lucky enough in the projects that I can only talk about the projects that I am involved in, but to really have strong work package leaders, and they do very well organize their breakout sessions to come back to the consortium meetings.
Yes, and of course, this is the key element in this context, right? That you trust them, and that you know that they know how to be the torchbearer of a meeting. They know how to resume what's been going on, and then you know how to control the group, so to say, or steer a discussion in the right direction, and so on. So.
Yeah, right. And of course, you know, I mean, we are always coming back, and that's also such a no-brainer to personalities. And of course, not everyone is a interactive workshop facilitator, and some people are more coming from a very academic, very basic research background, where they just have very, very different kind of discussions or ways to discuss things.
But that's... You can say it, then I'll say it. Boring.
Yeah. Well, yeah, that's a very but and it's like and that I think is the beauty, and also the beast of intercultural and project work, right? I mean, it's just we're different, and you can still learn a lot from each other and for yourself about how you handle these differences.
Yeah, and if we stick a little bit with that thought, you know, like a consortium is per se a bouquet of flowers. You have one of each sort, or you have, you know, and they have maybe groups of colors, you know, and some of them are in one corner and some in others, and of course we're not all supposed to be the same, but in the terms, if you need to steer a discussion and lead something forward, then sometimes you would wish that person would have another color, so to say.
I really like that picture. I want to give you another one too that I also that is stolen, or actually let's say borrowed from a great a previous colleague of mine, by the way. I'll do a quick shout out for her. Birgit Baumann. She's a great facilitator and trainer, and offers this kind of trainings also for event moderation and workshop facilitation. I learned a lot from her, and she always said that it's like a project consortium is like an orchestra. And I really like that picture because everybody plays a different kind of instrument. And some are really Mozarts, and the others are maybe just starting to play. And then there's the conductor, right? And this is in that picture, it was the meeting facilitator or the coordinator, or however you want to put it. And then you want to play a beautiful song, and then so sometimes we have to maybe tune in a little bit to each other and give a tag. What's the word in English? A rhythm. You have this little click, 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 click thing that you follow.
Beat the rhythm.
Yeah. And sometimes you just freestyle. I mean, that's also can also be really.
But then you have to go back
good.
to what you said in the beginning. You need to be very thorough and good, solid in your foundation before you go into freestyling. You have to know the limits
exactly.
before you break them.
Yeah, yeah, and I could spin this picture so much further, but I'll stop it here. My brain is just going. Anyway, no, but yeah.
Now I'm trying to, because I can see here the next section is actually the same that we talked about here. So this is included here, the effective to designing, because the designing of the agenda is actually the same that we're talking about here a little bit, where we how also to structure the setup of the agenda so it fits where you are in the phase and so on. Now, what you also need in the content part of the agenda is to talk about deliverables and milestones, all the formality, the things that you need to do towards the commission, right? That's normally something where you run through that, no?
Yes, yeah. In German, there is a good way to mix up Ja and Nein, which is Jein. So in English, it doesn't work really so well.
No,
but
I understand.
I would challenge that thought, because again, in the best case scenario, if you have a proper meeting structure set up and you have regular steering committee meetings, then for me that is the forum where you regularly look at the reporting, monitoring, deliverable milestones, status. That is not something that the whole consortium, when you have 60 people sitting there and this deliverable 7.3 is only relevant for 4 of them or so, that might not be necessary to
how do you do it?
Maybe even. So what we do is we have a very detailed internal monitoring process. We have an internal deliverable review process with a strict, with a clear timeline, a file where we have all our deliverables and milestones in there, where we have basically a schedule on when we are asking for a first outline, when the first draft is due for an internal review, when the final draft is due for the coordination team to check it, and when to then be submitted. So that's basically a 8 weeks or 6 weeks time frame. And this runs basically in parallel to the whole project runtime. We are monitoring this, we're following up on this, we're reviewing the deliverable reports and then submitting them. We discuss that during the steering committee meeting. In the best case scenario, we are getting informed by partners if a deliverable is delayed or if some data is missing, whatever. And then there is really not so much to discuss during the consortium meeting, again, which is relevant for everybody. And so just another slide with just another list of, okay, these deliverables, yes, okay, one slide to say okay, this has all been submitted in time, this has been already accepted, this is still open, is maybe all it needs. From my point of view. And so far that has always worked out really well. I wouldn't spend too much time on this, to be honest, in the consortium meeting.
Right. So a little bit in the same corner here. So do you forecasting or troubleshoot, are you addressing, so if things are going sideways according to plan, contingency, right? Is it something that I guess this is what you need to do also in a consortium meeting, address and say, look, here we're sliding sideways. And I guess the needs, especially, but if it's only one work package, for instance, then it can be dealt with in that specific work package, I guess. But how do you deal with these kind of things in the setup of, because if you have things that you need to solve,
Mm-hmm. Again, I think in the context of talking about consortium meetings, I mean, we would really only bring these kind of challenges in a consortium meeting when we are really close to, okay, we need an amendment, or we need to make a decision as the General Assembly to, I don't know, kick a partner out or whatever. So we're talking really rough decisions to make, or really big challenges.
Mm-hmm.
At a point in time when we say like, okay, this deliverable 2.3 might be delayed, this is something that would, in my experience, or in the best case scenario, be brought up in the steering committee meeting or advisory, general, how do you call this? There are so many different ways to call the steering committee: general, not assembly.
I understand.
Some call it advisory board, even though it's like, yeah.
The decision,
the core group
the board that is deciding, the group that is deciding. Steering group, whatever.
Yeah, to make the distinction, really, I mean, deciding would be the whole General Assembly, right? So, but to prepare the decisions, this core group or steering committee would usually be the coordinating team and the work package leaders, right? And in that kind of, in that setting, during such a meeting, a work package leader in charge of a specific deliverable would bring up, hey, there's an issue, we will be late with that deliverable, and then we would discuss it in the steering committee and take it from there. And then, so again, it would not necessarily even make it until into a consortium meeting, because the challenge is not big enough. We would then just when a deliverable, for example, is delayed, and we decide, okay, we get in touch with our project officer, explain the delay, ask for an extension of 3 months or whatsoever, and then that's done. So long story short, I think also the consortium meetings, as they are only every 6 months, sometimes yet learn from the timing, an issue will already be resolved or whatsoever until the next consortium meeting. So, yeah. I think everything's said.
Yeah, and what I've experienced also, that's if there's something from the commission or from the funding source, for instance. I experienced that there was a sort of common alarm about how much they were checking on logos and font size, stuff like this on social media posts. So where you have to, normally there would also be these common messages that you need to make sure people, when they're all in the same room, they look, guys, you probably already send it out by email, but the underlining normally at these kind of meetings that look, these are the rules, we have to follow them, and they can take away the funding if we don't, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah. Yeah, and that is a good point that you raise. I think that is what consortium meetings are really good for. I give you an example. We have another health example from the health cluster, a clinical trial. The recruiting centers are just like, they want to do the clinical trial. They're not really interested in the EU project so much, right? So it's different to other areas where people really engage in this is a consortia, we work together. They're not so much into that, and they also, in that context, are not really, they're clinicians, they're doctors, they're saving lives. And then I come and I tell them that they need to do a LinkedIn posting about this meeting that we're at. And they're just like, really? Do I have to? And then I have to explain that, it's public money, it's the funding we get, we're obliged to do that. And long story short, when I have them on site and I can show them what we did with the coordinating organization, we went to the Pint of Science Festival and we went to the Kids University and we did that and we did that. And then I put them in groups and let them discuss what they could do in their respective countries. And then suddenly they come up with all these ideas about newsletters that they can write an article for, or there is some kind of charity run where they are participating anyway, and they could wear T-shirts with the project's name and whatsoever. And suddenly you have that vibe in the room, right? This is something that you don't get in a virtual meeting.
At all.
Yeah.
But it's like this. I talked with many of my guests about this. When it comes to communication dissemination, the partners, they're slobs. They're obliged to, but they can't be bothered. So it's only the work package lead on communication dissemination that really cares.
Yeah, that's really bitter. That's why I'm really trying now from the beginning on. I was just in a meeting before this year for a proposal that we support. And I said, we will be tech work package leaders. And I want a team of people who are excited about this. You can't communicate about a project when you're not the type, when you don't have a LinkedIn or Blue Sky profile, or you're never on social media. You think social media is awful. But there are people out there, and I think it's also like really from also a kind of like personal development and training perspective for PhD students or young postdocs, where you can say this could actually also be a career pusher for you if you actually do outreach about your science, right? I mean, this is an important factor. And there are people out there who like communicating about EU projects. You just have to find them and suck them in as soon as you can. But again, a whole other topic for another episode.
Yeah, Nicole. Now, because one of the reasons why, in the first place, that Georg, he said, you should put Nicole in, because we try to do different things, like just the standard textbook event. And we move into now we sort of sketched the planning, we sketched the key elements of the agenda in quite good detail. But what I wanted to, because for instance here you forwarded me some feedback on the rundown on involving other stakeholders or different stakeholders in the event. Do you invite other people in, or what? Can you share a little bit with me with the thought about that?
Yeah. So again, I think that also depends, of course, very much on your respective projects. Some projects have this kind of advisory boards, ethical committees. I'm talking health sector mainly, but in general. And these boards, I don't know what your experience is with that, but very often they are somewhat forgotten.
Of course they are.
They are in the proposal, and they will give support and feedback, and they will we will highly benefit from them. And then
they were important in the proposal.
And I've never once saw them ever. But yeah, and I gotta admit, I mean, these boards, sometimes they do exist and they do work with certain work packages, like when we have a work package on ethical dimensions, whatever, then they are working with the team there. But then at the meetings, they don't show up, or they even in the first place never got invited. So I think that's just a reminder to all of us when we have these board members to invite them and to also give them a role. Like, the one thing is to just invite them to the meeting and they sit there and they listen. But to really give them a role, and then particularly with kind of external people, if you want them, this is just a very bad experience I had once where we were just talking about leaving a specific session to people you trust, work package leaders or others. But in that specific situation, I didn't know anything about the session that was planned by an ethical advisor of ours, one of our projects, and it nearly blew up my whole meeting, because this session was so confusing, and so the guidance was not clear, the potential outcome was not clear, nobody knew what they should do. There was just confusion in all of the phases. I couldn't clear it up because I had no clue what was supposed to happen. So what I'm saying is involve your board members, but hold them, keep them tight, and discuss clearly, brief them how you want your meetings to go.
Yeah.
And and then of course
don't want to
sorry, I'll let you
slash your honorary board or advisory board and go out. No, we do not write them in anymore in proposals. It's of course because in the proposal phase you want to show that you have critical mass and you have someone outside that can help you. But if you don't use it actively, and then when they are involved, they don't really understand because they're not part of the project, and then they come,
Yeah, and I think yet again another detour, but that's exactly what happens when in the proposal you put something in that doesn't really make sense, but you put it in anyway because it's required. And I get it, like, you want to be competitive and you have to cover it all. But if you haven't entirely thought that through and considered what is really the why is this board really there and what's really the added value and benefit, it's going to come back and step you in the back later in the implementation phase, because you think like, what do I do with this now, right? And then in this one project, we now always have this advisor with us and we always have to give him a slot, but everybody is already like, and now this again. And this is not like, it's not fun for anyone, right? No. And it's useless, really. Talking stakeholder involvement in consortium meetings, and I have mentioned that before, but I think because it's such a big part of health cluster projects now that you have to have a patient involvement, that is really next level complexity that is brought to your consortium meetings, because you are, or I mean, I don't have the experience with other kind of stakeholder groups, but I guess it would be the same when you work like with farmers or like, whoever is not a scientific expert in that sense. And you have these two worlds clashing that you have, in our case, the patient research partners there, who have super valuable contributions and are ultimately the ones why we're doing that research after all. But then you have to discuss in-depth scientific stuff, but you have to discuss it in a way that the patient understands and is able to give their input. And then you, in the best case scenario, you should provide lay language information up front so that they could prepare better for that meeting, right? To really be able to give input. And there's also, of course, this level of feeling shy to raise your voice with all these doctors in a room or whatsoever. So that adds a whole nother level of complexity if you want to do it right.
That's your role as a moderator.
Yeah, and that's really
inclusive.
Exactly. Yeah. No, it's that's why I should ask for a pay rise. Sometimes it's very complex, but also ultimately, and I think honestly, and I'm not getting too philosophically here, but ultimately also what we talked about communication before and outreach, in our times now, it's more important than ever to be able to get science across to the people, I don't know, and to be able to put it into words that other people understand, and to understand how important it is to do this scientific work, right? And I mean, if we, in a EU project consortia where we have patient research partners in our specific case that are proactively participating and wanting to contribute are not able to talk to them in a way that they understand and can give their input, then how shall it work on a broader scale out to the world, so to say? And I mean, that's now very dramatical. But in the end, ultimately, I think it's because we were talking about how scientists sometimes do not see the need to post on LinkedIn, and maybe LinkedIn is not the greatest channel for that, but to really explain what they're doing and excite people for science. And I think ultimately that's very, very important.
At least you can use the consortium meeting when you're together to do exactly what you shared earlier, showing practical examples of how you can communicate different things, and then to open their eyes a little bit of it, how they can do themselves to
Yeah, absolutely. And it could be, I mean, and people sometimes, it's not for everybody, and it just needs a few who can get excited about that. But just to give you a quick example, this one health project we're in deals with a good virus, which can help measure the level of your how well your immune system is working, and it could be a game changer for immunosuppression in post-transplant cases. And of course, you can play around so well with that, with the good virus, and now that we all know the bad virus like COVID and all. And so the team they prepared an input for the kids university where they explain this TT virus. It's called virus, and they have prepared a TikTok video for 10 to 14 years olds where they explain this virus and whatsoever. And it's also, and then we went to the Pint of Science Festival where you go to bars and present your science, and people can ask questions. And this is to me, I mean, this is really the fun part and the great part of bringing your science out there to the people, to kids, to inspire kids to become scientists or whatsoever. So, and you can do all of that within the scope of a EU project. And monologue over.
No
I'm
worries.
I'm a big fan of science communication.
Yeah.
As you can tell, maybe.
That we can also do an episode about. Now I think we need to see how we can slowly wrap up. So we have a section here on project culture, and I think it's because we discussed in the pre-talk about the importance of a well, smooth running consortium meeting in order for people to get a good feeling that this project is well run. So it's just, I think what we wanted to say with this, it doesn't have to be long, but it's just, the importance of having a structure where people, they don't feel perplexed or what on earth is going on here. You've said that somebody disrupted your meeting, one of your meetings like this, where everybody was. So it's important for the work in the group, and the respect for the coordinator, and the way that it is perceived, the project is being perceived by people, because they go back to the work they do normally, and again doing this in parallel. So that they have the feeling that this is under control.
Yeah.
You lost the words?
I'm not entirely sure. Yeah, no, I'm not entirely sure what the question was. Sorry. So, are you hinting at I mean, to me, there are two things. One is closer to the end of the project meeting, that there is a clear or a clarity towards, okay, what are really my next steps? This is sometimes forgotten or maybe not even forgotten in a consortium meeting, but you would just go through your agenda and then you have a nice closer and you say when you meet next time and fly safe and goodbye. And I think at close to the end of a meeting, it's really important to go take a look into the future, particularly the very next steps. So what we like to do, and I think I mentioned that maybe already during the kickoff part, that we like to do this 2, 6, 12 months outlook session where we put the work package teams together and work on a flip chart. So what are really our next steps? Because you want to have that momentum of the consortium meeting, that the people feel good in the best case scenario, and they also know already what to do, and not they feel good and they come home and they think like, well, that was nice, but now I forget about it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
This is part of the same coin. And also if you have, so we talked about how you can work also creatively with the setup of breakouts, whatever, you're right. But this is, if you zoom a little bit out, and if you look at them as participants in an event, and they come and they are guided, structured very well through the information that they need for the meeting, and then you have some breakouts that are well conducted, also with some where you engage people and you get them to fold out things together, Then when they go back and continue the work they have to do in the work packages, it's the feeling that here we have they are giving us something back. These meetings, it's not just something I have to do because I'm in an EU project. It's something that is added value for the work we need to do, the activities to deliver in the project, and it's well structured, the formalities that needs to be covered. It makes the project culture more, it feeds with the good energy into the project culture, so to say.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think what you mentioned before about the consortium meeting fatigue, when you are at the end of it and you think like, oh, thank God that's over. That was exhausting or whatsoever.
Yeah,
and then there is actually time to go home. The work is not done with the end of when you board the plane, right? Because in the best case scenario, you would have a structured follow-up where you send an email, not just with the minutes, but really remind them of the main outcome or discussions, or what the next steps. Try to also convey a little bit the feeling, like, share some pictures, share a posting that you did. Then keep looking at this. If you do this 2, 6, 12 months outlook, or however you do it, we tend to put then the screenshots of this provided to the respective work package leaders and follow up on that during the steering committee meeting. We were before talking about the newbies, new people, send an email out to them, how they like their first meeting, do they have any feedback for us or whatsoever. So as we already said at the very beginning, I mean, there are maybe a few hours or a few days where you think like, oh, I don't want to touch this topic anymore. But when you feel mentally ready for it again, then it is actually very advisable to do some follow-up that is more than just sending the minutes and send them off for another 6 months. But really try to drag sounds so negative, but ride the momentum wave a bit longer. So that is something that I think is often not fully used the way it could be used this time after the meeting.
Yeah. to wrap it. Nicole, advice. Do you have anything you want to share that you like with the listeners?
I mean, I think most of it was already mentioned, but what I took note of, have a team really in charge. It takes a village to organize such a good consortium meeting. Delegate, work with your colleagues together. You are a project team after all. One thing that maybe wasn't mentioned yet, and also comes from my previous trainer in moderation facilitation, methods. So the interactive format that I choose always follow the goals and not the other way around. What does that mean? So I don't say like, oh, I want a breakout session. Yeah, let's do a breakout session. But if you don't have a reason why you do the breakout session, then you might not need it, right? So really always consider, what do I really need to get out of these discussions, and then consider how to, which format works best for it. Compromise, less is more. We always try to pack everything into this meeting and discuss everything and get everything out there. Really ask yourself, what do they really need to hear? I think it's way more important, particularly at an on-site meeting, to give them the full project picture, and then to give them time to reconnect, to really dive deep into challenges, discussions, inspiration, talk to each other, come up with new ideas instead of listening to one presentation after the next. You can also do that online, and get good work package leaders from the beginning, and then involve them early into the consortium meeting planning, and pick a good location. Also, if you have to compromise on the heavy snow northern Sweden experience, but find a place that is easily reachable with good technical equipment on site.
Yeah, that's it. Now we only have the toughest challenge left.
Oh, the toughest challenge.
Yeah, and I put toughest challenge, that sometimes I'm a little bit more creative, but here I put toughest challenge in preparing and conducting the consortium meetings. So what's the roughest part in doing the consortium meetings? Hello.
Yeah, I really had
my
to.
net was gone.
I was really like, okay, am I repeating myself now, or do I find something new? And I found something new.
What is it? Doesn't have to be new. It has to be the top. It has to be the toughest challenge.
My personal toughest challenge is, sometimes I would just love to be partner, or maybe a work package lead. I want to sit in the audience. I want to listen and be entertained, and say something wise every now and then, and that's it. And then go enjoy dinner.
It's nice, I can tell you.
Yeah.
It's nice.
I've
been doing that
previously. I've been there. I enjoyed it. Sometimes more, sometimes less, depending on the
can be super
how
boring.
good the organizational team was. No, but it's nice to be able to enjoy consortium meetings from the other side, and that's my biggest challenge. But also. And yeah, it connects to what I said before. If you manage to delegate and work in a team, which is ultimately what EU project consortia are really all about, if you gather a good team around you and share tasks and responsibilities, then it can become a really enjoyable thing to do and to have such a consortium meeting.
And that's a wonderful note to end on. Thanks, Nicole. Now I'm just going to land the plane before we say goodbye to the listeners. So, dear listeners, thank you so much for listening to the end. I hope that this has been valuable for all you out there that are sitting regularly, working with this. Of course, even better if it's the first time you have to do this. It's giving you some reflections and good advice on how to approach this. If you like what you've been listening to here, and if you're a newbie, you can go. I have a big treat for you, because I have a lot, 185 episodes around now. Not everything on Consortium meetings, but you have lots of episodes on my platform, thegrant.eu, on EU R&D funding. So, of course, the implementation series here, we'll put a link for the series, but also I have timeline series on how to prepare a proposal and tons of other stuff on within this corner. So I will put links for that. And while you're there, please, by all means, subscribe to my email list. This is how you support a humble, independent podcaster like myself. Thanks in advance. And finally, connect with me on LinkedIn. That's where the fun happens. That's where the flow is. That's where I like stuff. That's where I comment. That's also where I share my marketing on the episodes that I release. And that's often also where I pick up my guests for the show. So connect with me and go and give a like to the grant page to be connected to the flow of information. That's that. We're done.
Awesome. That was lovely.
And thank you so much for joining here. And as a cliffhanger for you out there, I guess we will also be having, I will be recording an episode on the social elements with a collaboration partner, Monica of Nicole here. So that's coming up and it's arranged. So you can look forward to that.
Yeah, awesome. Totally tune in on that. Monica is great and she has so many insights on social elements of project meetings. Totally can recommend listening in on that.
Good. Now, Nicole, let's say goodbye to the dear listeners. Bye.
Bye.
Thanks for listening to this episode of The Grant. All the Grant episodes have their own site on the Grant website. You'll find the link to the episode site where you listen to your podcast. On the site for this episode, you'll find a link to Nicole's personal LinkedIn site and a link to EUTEMA's website. Further, there is a link to the implementation series where you find the previous 10 episodes in the series. Next week, it is time to have a look at IP in proposals. I look forward to that. And finally, remember the Grant meetup in Brussels on the 26th of September from 5 o'clock on Place Luxembourg. Go to my platform, thegrant.eu, on the front page, and you will find a link to the event where you can go and check in if you would like to join. If you're in Brussels that day, I look forward to that for sure.